Just a little bit more. Okay. Now. Surprise!
What's this?
Fancy tennis court for fancy player. You.
You in from inside.
A scene from Kim's Convenience, that beloved CBC television show that's back on the air into its 5th season. Enjoying the new episodes. There are many other Canadian shows back on too after a lengthy shutdown caused by the pandemic. That is what we're going to talk about with Eli this morning. What's happening in film and television. Good morning. Great to see you as always on a Friday. Eli Glasner. So many people happy to see those shows back on the air. What has it been like behind the scenes to get to this point, Eli?
You know, it's remarkable. Like, you look at the footage from the new season of Kim's Convenience, of Murdoch Mysteries, of so many other shows, you would never know the conditions these shows were shot under COVID-19 conditions, lots of precautions, the crew covered in PPE. And, you know, talking to a lot of the cast and crew from these productions, they talk about the communication challenges of just being able to adapt, getting used to working in those masks, in those visors, not being able to recognize the friends that you've spent years working together, having to go out to the parking lot so you can take your mask off just to say hello from a couple car lengths away, to recognize your friends. I spoke to Jean Yoon from Kim's Convenience, and here's what she had to say about what it was like working on the new season. Take a look.
We had to do our own touches. We had to do our own props. And we had to expect and assume fewer takes. So it just required a greater amount of focus and you never knew if that one take was actually going to be the only take.
And think about it, like, this is a comedy show and it's all about that performance and getting the perfect moment. And now, just because of all those extra layers and just trying to get as much done in a day as possible, if you've got a good take, you just keep moving on. And so that really kind of added to the pressure. Then you take a look at Murdoch Mysteries. So Murdoch Mysteries was one of the first shows to go back in front of cameras after Ontario's first lockdown. I want to introduce you to Debbie Drennan. She has been working in the film industry, frankly, for longer than I have been alive. So she is a veteran, and she is part of the family that really work on Murdoch Mysteries. And it was a struggle in the beginning, just finding new ways of working. She's a makeup artist, and she still had to make people look beautiful, but working through all these layers of plastic. Take a look.
Having plastic all around us and having to wipe everything down in between people, it added like a good 10 minutes to every makeup that was done in my chair.
And, you know, they were very lucky. They were very safe. They took their precautions. They had their distance. There were no outbreaks. They're being tested very frequently. But the one thing I heard from many people working on film and TV in Canada the past couple months is actually a level of exhaustion. I think this is something that healthcare workers can relate to, is just being swaddled in all those layers and then being on set, and just the anxiety of being prepared and being very aware of your surroundings, and even just not taking a sip of water because of having to remove all the layers. So at the end of the day, a lot of people experiencing, you know, just exhaustion and actually a little bit of dehydration, headaches from what they had to do to get that job done.
It's so interesting. I remember Yannick Bisson was on our program as they were just going back into production talking about, remember we talked about how difficult it was to get insurance for various productions and all of the extra levels of challenge that the pandemic presented. What impact has it had on just the volume of business Canadian production is doing?
Here is what's remarkable about this story. Given all those challenges, in parts of Canada, it is actually busier, Heather. In British Columbia and Ontario, things are booming, while even parts of Hollywood are shutting down because the virus is raging in California. Take a look. Here is Tribro Studios. This is near the airport in Toronto. And so even as the travel business is getting quieter and those hangars are sitting empty, well, now they're moving into those hangar spaces and turning them into studio spaces because there's so much demand from Netflix and other American companies. Take a listen to the president of the company, Peter.
Phone hasn't stopped ringing. There's a tremendous amount of calls coming in for studio space. That's why we expanded to the airport facilities. We needed more space, and we're building studios in Pickering right now.
It's incredible, the expansion, the pace.
They're growing.
So what does the future look like then?
Well, I mean, it's tricky. Demand is very high right now, but there are problems. Ad revenue from Canadian broadcasters is actually down. So a lot of the producers I spoke to, they're worried. I mean, they're making original stories, but they're not quite sure if they'll be able to find homes for those stories right now. Now, many productions are pausing right now and trying to make that judgment about whether to get back in action in spring. But with cases high in many provinces, it's a tough call. I mean, like, do you find a way to shoot in Toronto? Do you maybe shoot in Northern Ontario in Sudbury? But then are you risking bringing cases there? And actually, because of the volume of business in Canada right now, Canadian productions are having trouble just getting resources, getting makeup trailers, because so many American productions are here using them and creating that appetite for content. I mean, that we're still at home and we're watching a lot of stuff, so the demand certainly hasn't slackened.
Eli, it's unprecedented times for everybody in that industry facing these challenges. Thanks for keeping track of them for us, and we'll see you next week, Eli.
All righty.